I want to take you back to the summer of 2017 in Washington. We're about 6 months into Donald Trump's first term, and Republicans were trying to make good on their promise to repeal Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, which provided health insurance coverage for more than 10 million Americans at that point. But despite having been promising and planning this repeal for literally years, the GOP, which was newly taken over by Donald Trump, didn't have a real plan for what to replace it with. And they were not especially in the mood to follow the rules and regular order, like debate and hearings, in order to come up with a real plan. They were intent on passing something, anything they could call a repeal by any means necessary. They needed those political points. Enter Arizona Senator and former Republican presidential nominee, John McCain.
Let's trust each other. Let's return to regular order. We've been spinning our wheels on too many important issues because we keep trying to find a way to win without help from across the aisle. The most revered members of this institution accepted the necessity of compromise in order to make incremental progress on solving America's problems and defend her from her adversaries. That principled mindset and the service of our predecessors who possessed it come to mind when I hear the Senate referred to as the world's greatest deliberative body. I'm not sure we can claim that distinction with a straight face today.
That last line. In that moment, John McCain didn't feel confident calling the United States Senate the world's greatest deliberative body with a straight face. That was July 25th, 2017, 8 years ago. Oh, man, if only John McCain could see how far we've fallen since. McCain gave that speech during an emotional return to the hallowed halls of Congress after disclosing his brain cancer diagnosis, hence the cut over his eye. He admonished the leaders of his own party, as you saw, for how they had managed the partial repeal effort that they were trying to jam through Congress. And that phrase he used, regular order, sounds kind of self-explanatory, but it does have an official meaning. It's the process and procedures that have governed the Senate for generations, the rules and precedents that have been followed in order to pass legislation. You might think of it as the old school way of doing things, not to say it's outdated, but it is traditional. There's a reason classrooms still teach the Schoolhouse Rock ballad, I'm Just a Bill, because the start to finish process of signing a bill into law remains the same after all these years. But there was nothing regular or orderly about how Republicans were going about repealing Obamacare, and Senator McCain didn't like that. Republicans bickered about the health care bill, claiming they could come up with something better, despite failing to do so for years. McCain was disappointed with the option presented to senators just hours before the vote, but what bothered him even more was Republican strategy for hobbling Obamacare. They skipped committee consideration. They rejected any input from Democrats. They delivered a bill straight to the floor. So 3 days after McCain gave that speech calling for regular order, he delivered this iconic movement. With a swift downward flick of his thumb, McCain tanked his own party's efforts to repeal Obamacare. His late-night thumbs-down vote stopped his party from undercutting a huge Democratic achievement. The signature achievement, might I remind you, of the Democrat who beat him for the presidency. John McCain was not a fan of Obamacare. He made that very clear. He even campaigned on repealing and replacing it. But in the end, he saved it. But because he could not stand to see the rules and norms of Congress so degraded. Now, if he thought that was bad, he wouldn't even recognize the system as it's operating today. Regular order? Never heard of it. Circumventing committee consideration seems quaint compared to what's been happening in Congress this week. We're only on day 4 of this government shutdown. At the heart of the funding fight right now are the Obamacare subsidies. Yes, all these years later, and Obamacare is still haunting Republicans. The tax credits that have made health insurance more affordable for millions of Americans are set to expire at the end of this year, and Democrats want to extend those credits so Americans don't have to pay even more for health insurance. Republicans want none of that. The Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, signaled that he would not even negotiate the health care provisions of the bill with Democrats while the government is closed. On Tuesday, he said, quote, the negotiations happen when the government is open, so let's keep the government open, and then we will have the negotiation, end quote. So, no meaningful negotiations. Got it. And pulling the strings in the other corner is President Trump, who's seizing the opportunity to take punitive action, axing federal jobs and targeting what he perceives to be Democratic spending priorities. He said so on Truth Social on Thursday. Quote, I have a meeting today with Russ Vought, he of the Project 2025 fame, to determine which of the many Democratic agencies, most of which are a political scam, he recommends to be cut, and whether or not those cuts will be temporary or permanent. I can't believe the radical left Democrats gave me this unprecedented opportunity. An unprecedented opportunity to punish Democrats and the American people, by the way. On Wednesday, Russ Vought, the aforementioned Project 2025 architect and White House budget director, announced the cancellation of billions of dollars in federal funding to Democratic-led states. $8 billion in climate-related funding to 16 blue states was canceled. $18 billion for 2 New York City infrastructure projects was frozen. The White House also threatened mass layoffs of federal workers as opposed to the normal furloughs that occur during a government shutdown. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said on Thursday that layoffs were imminent, and she added a rather menacing promise, quote, if they don't want further harm on their constituents back home, then they need to reopen the government, end quote. She was talking about Democrats, of course. This is just the start. The longer the shutdown lasts, the more opportunity there is for Donald Trump to dole out political punishment and to advance his own agenda. And that's the strategy for Republicans. Force the Democrats to cave by hurting their constituents and blaming the Democrats themselves. Regular order be damned.